I'm trying to get somewhere with this. Is there a situation when you do not think you're worth someone else's time?
Sure.
When?
Okay, where you keep using the Elon Musk example. Like, right now, I'm not worth Elon Musk's time because he's probably in the middle of a meeting or doing some, SpaceX.
But how do you know that?
Because he works like 80 hours a week.
But what if even a short conversation with you could say something to him, right? Even unintentionally, that like really changed his life.
What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the StoryTIme podcast, episode 4. As you can see, we're missing 2 people today, so it's just me, Chris, and Malik. What's up, y'all?
Yeah, it is. It's 3 of us. The 3 Musketeers today.
And not the candy bar.
See, I know. Hey, look, I'll be carrying every week anyway, so my back just get a little bit heavier, but I'm used to it. LeBron James on that.
It's LeBron James.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm saying? I got 6 rings in this already. So.
LeBron ain't got no 6 rings. You talking about MJ?
Okay. He finna get a 6th ring this year.
Alright.
He finna get a 6th ring next year.
We'll see.
How y'all doing though?
I'm good. It's been a pretty good Friday. Nothing to complain about.
I know last week was homecoming.
Yeah.
Yeah, that bitch was lit. It was. I'm tired though this week. I am.
You tired?
I'm exhausted. I had an exam. High key forgot about the exam. It's one thing that I forgot about it. It was just so low, like on the priority list. And by the time it was its turn to be number 1 on the priority list, it was a close one. But I think we landed okay. We'll be alright.
So it started off, man. I knew this week was gonna be tough though. I mean, right after homecoming, what is it? Week 4 or 5 in school?
Right.
Yeah, it's about week 4. Week 4, I believe. Week 4. Yes, week 4.
Beats me.
I had 4 exams this week with the essay. Knocked all that stuff out. Is it just me or is it like something like when we get when we come around exam time? Is it like the afterwards, the aftermath of exam time? It's like you about to have the easiest semesters of the weeks of the semester coming up, like the following week after an exam. So if I had all of them this week, my next week's about to be cake.
Chilling,
I'm about to knock out. Yeah.
Introducing new material.
Right.
Seems like you got it. You'd be like, yeah. Like keep going.
I mean, if y'all, that's the best time to miss, right?
Honestly.
If we're gonna miss one like that.
No, I was just telling you about that. I guess it's a little different what I was saying though, but it's like when you go into an exam and you get it done, and especially if you feel like you did good, there's like a high coming out of the exam, and I definitely had one of those on Wednesday, and just like Thursday, I was just like chilling all day. I was like, I don't want to do none of my homework. I just did good on that exam. I'm just chilling.
I say I had some highs and lows this week. Yeah, I mean, in the same day. In the same hour, right. So I did good on one exam, and you just got to keep it moving. That's one thing.
Like, seriously.
That's one thing that a test strategy that I learned this week was just keeping it moving. So we'll bring that back up later.
That's right.
I think one thing that I want to bring up with, because one of the classes, and I promise we'll stop talking about school after this, but, so I took an exam Wednesday, in fairly one of my hardest physics classes that we have here, and something that I want to bring up is, and this isn't normally my character, so when I kind of found myself in this, situation afterwards, I was like, oh wow, like this is what it means when someone feels less than, right? So then I go into the exam thinking that, and given we haven't got scores or anything back, this is just solely off of confidence of the exam. So given I'm in here with a bunch of triple, double, we got some high-level character guys and knowledge guys, right? And I just necessarily thought that they were going to do better than me just because of who they are. Like I automatically assumed that. But post-exam, I remember talking to some of the guys that I thought were like that. like that as in very knowledgeable, very, intellectual when it comes to the material. And he just says to me, and he says, what'd you think about the exam? I said, oh, it was way easier than I thought. But then his face kind of turned, front, and he goes, huh. Well, I thought it was pretty hard. How somebody want to go get comfort and say, like, how you talk about how hard this exam was. But I thought it was easier than what I thought, given that, and given he could still have a higher score than me. What I'm getting at is I felt less than him when it was actually harder for him, more difficult for him that he thought, interpreted, than what it was for me. So why did I even go into the exam thinking that, why was my confidence even at a level of, not up to par with everyone else's, standards of the exam. So I think, that carries with all parts of, you look at someone else and say, I'm less than. And I never really found myself in that position because, I preach all the time, like, I'm a human, you're a human, we're all humans. Why do I, compare myself to you? But when it comes to, material, I think kind of school does that to you.
Yeah. And I also think that I find it really funny that, like, humans kind of naturally, like, are self-centered, right?
Mm.
I mean, like, literally, like, our individual realities are everything that we perceive, right? So, of course, we're to some degree self-centered. But especially when it comes to, like, interacting with like, other people, the self-centeredness can kind of be bad. And specifically, like, this scenario, like, I bet you didn't sit and think about the students who you thought would be more prepared for the exam. I bet you didn't sit and think, man, I wonder how he feels, or like, man, like, I wonder how he feels about me in this classroom, right? Like, like, does he look at me as a student who's over-prepared, or does he feel, to some degree, like, I'm the smartest one in the class? And I think that, like, like, the answer would probably be no. Like you didn't sit and think, like, maybe how does he feel, right? Versus, like, this is how I feel, and, like, I feel slightly intimidated, and, like, I feel slightly, like, less than, and, like, I feel underprepared. Versus, he probably felt the exact same way going into that exam.
That's crazy because I didn't even think about the other side. Z, you want to speak on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same class, so I know what you're talking about. And it's like, and I don't think it matters who you are.
And it's crazy because you probably, we probably did better than, them in the sense of people look at them higher than you. So it's almost like, do you think that way of, how do you kind of think about it?
Yeah. So, first of all, I think it doesn't matter who you are when you're going into a quantum mechanics exam. Talk about some of the stuff we were talking about. Then
exposing us over here.
It doesn't matter who you are because you're going into it kind of dreading it. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is going to be tough.
Right.
This is going to be a tough exam. And then, you get in there and, like, for me and you at least, because, like, we were expecting it to be so bad that we get in there and we're like, oh, this is cake.
Right.
But, like, them, maybe they were expecting it, to be a little easier. And they get in there like, oh, man, like, maybe I should have prepared a little harder. And I guess what you can draw from that is, like, I guess your mood is greatly affected by your expectations.
That's right.
But I guess touching on what you were saying about, comparing yourself to others is, like, I have routinely tested well my whole academic career. But I've learned to, like, I don't rank people, or judge people based on test scores. Because tests, aren't necessarily the best way to measure, someone's intelligence or their knowledge.
Nor do they define you. Right.
Right. Because, I've had conversations with pretty much everyone in that room, and everyone, remembers certain things and, doesn't remember other things. And, everyone has their own perspective and, I guess, their own perception of the material and of, the concepts. And so it just happens that, like, I'm good at, guessing what's going to be on the exam and, preparing myself to answer anything that might pop up. But then other people, they might really be focused on this one thing and really understand it well, but then, like, some of the other stuff they're a little more fuzzy on. Yeah. Or maybe, like, in your case, you're the type where you get an example problem, and once you learn how to do that, then you can like replicate it. And like any example problem, like they could change all the numbers and everything. Like you'll know how to do it every time.
That's because I used to trace pictures when I was a kid. You know, you put the picture behind
the connector. Tracing.
Oh yeah, put the picture behind it and say, "Look, I drew this."
Right. You take a piece of paper and put it over the other piece of paper. Yeah, I did that too.
That's how I used to learn, but
I think I'm better at like adapting to the situation. So like they could throw a curveball on the exam and like something we've never had on a homework before. It's like it's the same concepts, but like we haven't seen a problem that looks exactly like that. Yeah. So I feel like I'm good at like handling those curveballs and taking the different pieces and kind of throwing them all together to answer the test questions. I'm just a good test taker, I think, but I don't necessarily think that I'm better than anyone else in the class. Nor do I think that I'm worse than anyone in the class. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it just comes down to effort. Yeah. You know, like how hard do you study? How hard do you try to understand this stuff? So, and we kind of talked about some of this stuff last week.
We did, and I think it's a good lesson about confidence, right? So like I'll take this like with a grain of salt and in moderation if you choose to adopt it, but. Like, if I find myself overly confident about, like, a thought or an idea or, like, anything, like, really, like, I always get a little skeptical because it's, like, when I'm like, yes, like, this is clearly the right way and the only right way, like, I'm probably missing a perspective or something is probably wrong, right? Like something sketchy there. But then, like, on the flip side, like, when I'm, feeling low confidence or I'm like, man, like, I don't know if I got this, I'll, like, try to flip it on that. And, kind of remind myself, of, like, who you are and, like, who you want to be, right? Yeah. And it's, like, you just kind of have to, like, check yourself. Like, when you're feeling low, boost yourself up. But when you're feeling overly high, like, be quick to kind of check yourself.
And, I mean, man, we almost get into a podcast early, but, I do want to bring up this example. Going back into, taking this back about 2 or 3 months, back into my internship. I think it was one of the hardest things that I've ever done just because I was around people. And this was something that I just didn't understand was that perception or that perspective. And I think it kind of hit me when I was in that environment Wednesday when it's like, okay, now I'm on the other side of the scale. And given I was able to snap out of that because I recognized that. But this summer, I was interning with a few other people from different schools from across the country or from Ohio, and then another one from U of I, different stuff like that, right? Pretty high caliber people, intelligent people. They come from a wealthier background. They come from a different background than I came from, right? So then we're in this internship, and one thing that they said to me, I remember having we argued a lot. I will say we argued a lot just from a different point of views. But one thing that was spoken was, and the CEO happened to be a Wabash alum. But they said that we are interns, therefore, two things that this is 2 things. So you guys are going to go off on this. We were interns. Their perception was that interns should not talk to the CEO of the company. That's one thing, and then also that interns are on a lower scale than employees, right? So when it comes to an intern and an employee. You must obey this employee, whoever it is. You must. And one thing that I noticed is how they began to act different around someone else because of who they are, because of their title, but not because of their character. So then they will act subordinate to someone just because of their position in the office. So then they would get jealous of they would get jealous of me. And I want you guys to talk about that first, and then I'm gonna bring about how they got jealous of me. And then we can continue that. But talk about that perspective of being subordinate to someone else just because of their position.
Well, I mean, that's how corporate America is structured. Like, there's a hierarchy. That's just how it is. Mm-hmm. And so, if you don't obey your boss, you're not listening to your boss and doing what you're supposed to do, then you're going to get fired. It's just how it is.
But not necessarily obey is what we're talking about. It's more on the aspect of... Not being disrespectful, but why is it that you can't talk to, why do you feel like, you see what I'm trying to say?
You are so much higher that an intern can't even address you.
Yes.
Right?
But why does the intern feel that way? Like, and I was just thinking, like, he's human, and this is literally my point here. I'm like, he's human, I'm human. why can't you go talk to, if you got something to say, if I got something to say, I don't know about y'all, this is where the disconnect came. I don't know about y'all, but I'm going to go walk in his office and talk to him. So why do you guys feel like you can't do that?
Well, I feel like I can't do it? I guess I don't
Well,
understand.
no. Not as in you, but as in the interns. Why do you guys feel like you can't go, I'm trying to understand.
So you're saying that the interns, like, tell themselves that they're not allowed to talk to the CEO? Is that what you're saying?
No. So, yeah, do you see what I'm saying?
Right. So like, yes. So like, that does raise a good question. Like, who presented this? Like, was this something that like y'all were told?
No. So that's funny. This was nothing that we were ever told, but this is just something you automatically assumed.
Okay.
Coming in, right?
Right.
So it's like if he walks through, who am I to go talk to him?
Right.
You know,
right?
Because I'm an intern.
Right. So they just thought of themselves so lowly, right? In a sense, and I'm glad you made that distinction because like that was gonna be my first question. Is like, wow, like they actually said that out of their own mouths. Like, yes, that is something that can be implied, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, damn, like they actually said that. Like, okay, but they didn't. Well, it's funny because I've never really been on the whole hierarchy scale, primarily because like in my head, like it's all made up. Like you're only important because these group of people consider you this important, but really like you're just a human, just like I am, right? Like if somebody comes in here and like they cut you and they cut me, like we're both bleeding blood, you know what I mean? So like at the end of the day, like yes, you may be in a position of authority, but that in itself shouldn't make you irreproachable, right? Or like untouchable. Like I mean, like you talk about like you can't even address somebody. Like I mean,
but is it when does it get to the point? Because it almost felt like I was the one that was disrespectful because I'll be able to, you know, when is it disrespectful? You see what I'm saying?
I wouldn't say that it is inherently disrespectful. I would say that it probably caught their attention. Like, that's different. Like nobody else had the audacity to do that, right? Like audacity, like in the context of like for good or for bad, right? Like nobody else had the audacity to walk in my office and actually address me about something that they had an issue with. But I wouldn't call it inherently disrespectful. Now then again, this is the same person, right? Like who will argue with like his own family members about certain things, and I wouldn't call it disrespectful. Like I think that you can have a disagreement and like a debate, and like you can genuinely exchange your perspectives without being disrespectful. Like I think disrespectful.
You gotta be able to. You gotta be able to communicate.
Like seriously,
and people aren't always gonna agree. No. And I think on the topic, the only person it could possibly, I guess, be disrespectful to is like your direct superior. So if you have a manager and you go over the manager's head to talk like to the vice president or the general manager or the CEO or whatever. So like going over your manager's head can be disrespectful to your manager. And also another reason
I would even disagree with that.
Another reason why an intern might be told not to talk to a CEO or might assume they're not supposed to talk to the CEO is the CEO is the most important person in the company. Like they're the top most officer. They run the company. And their time is important. Their time is valuable. So an intern going into their office and taking 20 minutes of their time.
I want to talk about
on
that.
Something that isn't necessarily something that they need to address. Now, if it's a serious topic, right, that is CEO level, this is something the CEO needs to handle. Then yeah, by all means. But if this is something that could be handled by like a manager, then you're in a way you're wasting the CEO's time. You're wasting company money.
Why? And this is exactly what I want to hit on, because this is exactly the point that they made, right? They understood that. They're like, you're radical. What are you doing? You don't go over we had a boss, we had a manager, but you don't go over his head to go talk to the CEO. Watch this. Why do you think that you're not worth the CEO's time?
Well, I guess it depends. Like I said, it depends on what you're bringing to them, what you're talking about.
Well, in the context of what would be an example that what shouldn't be spoken with them about?
Taking time off. If you want
to
take a long lunch, you have a doctor's appointment.
I guess.
You know what I'm saying?
Then that's protocol stuff. Then I guess that'll be different. The thing that I'm getting at is more along the lines of, if you have an idea, if you want to introduce yourself, if you want to talk about.
Okay, I think it's one thing to introduce yourself. I say by all means you have the right to introduce
yourself.
Talk
about what the company's vision is.
And just like fellowship, genuinely try to get to know like CEO.
All right, now, okay, so now you're getting into like now you're wasting his time. You know what I'm saying? If you're just
How so?
going in there to just have a conversation and get to know the guy, like he has work to do. You know what I'm saying? But now if it's like lunchtime, you know what I'm saying, and you catch him like in the elevator or something, then you know what I'm saying?
It's tough.
The context does matter. The context does matter, and maybe that's why this makes this so like conflicting for me personally, is because like we don't have the context.
Context always matters.
Yeah, especially in like when it's appropriate to address somebody or not address somebody. I've just never been a fan of really respecting hierarchies, especially when it's like, you can't do this solely because I am in this position. Well, it's like, well, like who do you really think you are, right? Like okay, well, but. As far as the CEO and addressing company, like actually like fellowshipping with him and getting to know him, I don't know. I mean, like, are y'all in y'all's like peak busyness season? You know what I mean? Like is this dude really busy, or is it like he's just in his office chilling, like talking about the golf game, and then like you see an opportunity for you to like join the conversation, you know what I mean, and jump in there, then like absolutely by all means, like they are not that special. Like introduce yourself, make yourself known. Like,
now I think it would be safe like to go in there. Now let's assume you've already introduced yourself, so like you know each other at least on a name basis. You know each other's names, so you go in there. I think the first question to ask is, hey, do you have a second? Like, are you busy? Right. And if they're not busy, then you go on to say, oh well, I just wanted to chat with you about this, and then you kind of just like you push it until someone tells you to like that you have to go. You know what I'm saying? Until either your manager comes around and says, hey, I need you to work on this, or the CEO's like, can you leave? I have to take this call or something.
Well, he's gonna be like, oh, 1 second, I got it.
So let me put my perspective on it.
All right.
I think if you have something to say, regardless of what you have to say, you should, personally, I would go talk to whoever I need to talk to.
Yeah.
And that may be wrong when it comes to the way you should do it. So even if that comes to taking time off, and I think that I need to talk to the CEO because of that, then I will. Yeah. Sure. It doesn't matter what it is, even if it's protocol to go to my manager.
But the thing is like, you're not going to go to the CEO with a mundane thing. You're going to go to the CEO because it's important.
I agree. Yeah. But then, at the same time, and going back to the frame, the context of it, it's like, because of who I am, if it's not, like, if it's not important, if it's not worthy of his time, it's like I'm not worth his time. It's pretty much nothing that I can present to him is worth his time. And employees, and take it out of the context of interns, employees think like that. Mm-hmm. I'm not worth their time.
Right.
And then also, let's take it out of that context into real life. You walk around and think about, you see people, and then you don't even introduce yourself because you say, I'm not worth it, or I'm not worthy of it. And it's going back to that confidence thing.
Or, it might not be like that blatant.
Yeah.
But it's an implicit belief of that. And I think that you could probably always trace it back to something like that. That's a very good point. What do you think? Still thinking on it?
I mean, I really firmly, kind of believe in what I've said. Is like, it just depends on like what you have to say, and it also depends on the size of the company too. Because take
it outside of the broad. I want to kind of speak on the sense of not being worth someone's time. Do you believe that there's a situation where you're not worth someone's time?
Yeah.
What
you believe that?
Well, what situation would that be?
I mean, you believe that because you're a busy person, and if Kasi and Jovan hit you up and say, hey, you want to come like hang out, and you're like, sorry, it's not worth my time right now.
I feel like that's different.
Or you're trying to work on your homework, and somebody says,
I feel like that's different.
How so?
Because then it's like, I'm not worth your time. But it's a different type
of... I'm not worth your time.
All right, let me break it down. I'm not worth your time, therefore I won't even address you to be in your presence. Like, I'm seeking something from you is the way I'm getting at. Okay. When someone's seeking something from me, I can say that's not worth my time.
Okay, so you're saying, like, I'm just assuming that I'm not worth somebody's time.
Is there a place that you can answer, like, do you agree with that? Is there a place, yes or no, on if you can see yourself not worth someone else's time or someone else's time?
I mean,
So if Elon Musk walked through here right now, would you say I would not speak to him because I'm not worth his time?
dude, if he was in Martindale, of course I'm gonna talk to him.
Well,
Right, but it's
You know
like
what
to
I'm
what
saying?
extent?
To what
Right.
extent?
So like, would you just say like, "Hey, Elon," or would you like go down and be like, "How are you? Like, how are things going? Like, how are things going?"
Well, yeah, I mean, if hypothetically, if Elon Musk, I guess, was walked in the door, is that the situation? I would say, you know,
well,
like
he better drop some money if you want to do
right.
that.
Right. I mean,
First, I'm probably gonna say some, some words that we shouldn't say on the podcast, and I would say, like, yo, Elon Musk, like, why are you here? First of all, like, what are you doing? Am I dreaming? Is this like, am I in some type of it's like a simulation or something? But I mean, I guess it depends on how much time he has, because I'm gonna take every second I can of his time. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
I really don't even want to talk to him that bad. I'm just like, I would just know that God sent him to bring me my Tesla. Like, I would,
To bring
that's like that's your sole reason you're here right now. It's like to deliver my Model S. Like, you can leave the key outside.
Honestly, I might try and get a job. I would say Elon, I think you should hire me.
Yeah.
I could learn anything you want me to learn. I'll be a great asset to your company.
Yeah.
I'm a bright individual.
I don't know. I think I would argue that like you probably freeze and you say hi and then you like walk away in shock. And
Well,
then
I
like
mean,
3 days later you'd be like, damn, I should have did this. I should have did. I should have said. Yeah.
Isn't that how it always is?
Right, but like in reality, like you would have just.
I mean, I guess again, it depends on the context. Because if he walks in this room right now, I mean, is he walking in by himself? Is he walking in with a whole bunch of security? You know what I'm saying? Like, how easily can I access him?
Okay.
So, like-
Okay. I'm trying to get. All right. Let's.
Right.
I'm
We
trying to
can
get
talk about this for an hour.
look,
I'm gonna keep making you give more specifics.
But I'm trying to get somewhere with this. Is there a situation when you do not think you're worth someone else's time?
Sure.
When?
Okay, where you keep using the Elon Musk example. Like, right now, I'm not worth Elon Musk's time because he's probably
Why?
in the middle of a meeting or doing some, SpaceX.
But how do you know that?
Because he works like 80 hours a week.
But what if even a short conversation with you, you could say something to him, right? Even unintentionally, that like really changed his life.
I mean, theoretically, I could.
Watch.
But that means I'd have to, first of all, I'd have to figure out where he is. How do I get to this?
No. But like just in general, like you instantaneously assume that like you would not basically have anything productive to contribute to Elon Musk or his life, right? Like what can I basically? How can he benefit from interacting with me, right?
I mean, we could probably have a good conversation.
Right. But what I'm saying is that in your head, right, you may see that conversation as like minuscule, like it was just small talk, right? And like you may even value it on a different scale of like I just met a person that like I admire and who has succeeded in certain ways, right? But like what if you said something to him like what if Elon Musk was considering to end his life and you said something to him about you and your life and that stopped him from ending his life?
I mean, that'd be great.
I think what happens is a lot of times we interact with people or look at people and try and place our assumptions on those people about us.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it wholeheartedly.
I definitely get what you're saying.
Well, like wholeheartedly, because this is what you said. You say he's probably working 80 hours a week. He's probably doing this. This takes me back to the internship again. There was one incident where I was, and granted, I don't want this whole podcast to be about that, but there was one incident where we talked about the CEO again with my interns, and I say, because I had a genuine conversation with the CEO of our company, and we spoke, and it was practically longer than any other intern has ever had a conversation with him. Granted, he was a Wabash alum, shout out to Wabash College, but we got into a dispute. How many hours do you think he works a week? He puts it. I asked him that. I said, how many hours do you think he works a week? Since you guys have no time, since you're not worth his time, how many hours do you think he works a week where you couldn't fit in? He probably works 50, 60 hours a week. He's always on meetings. He's always doing this. He told me he doesn't even work 25 hours a week.
That's what to say, right?
So why do you think that? So why do you automatically say you're not worth his time when you've never tried? And I think that's something else that I want to hit on. And this is we're breaking it down here because why do we make assumptions instead of figuring it out, right? And actually getting the answer. Because a lot of times we make assumptions before we even ask the question.
Think about it. Like, it's really risky. If you walk up to Elon Musk and he doesn't want to talk to you, that can go really bad. I'm sorry, I don't have time. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, but if that's the
walk
worst thing that
yeah.
happens, I don't think that's the worst case scenario. But like, if that's the worst thing that happens, then why not? I mean, the worst thing he could do is just tell you, sorry, I don't have time.
But if you really applied that same principle to really any other scenario,
Now look, it's different.
I think you justify Chris's point. Like,
So
what's the
say that
worst? What's the worst that can happen?
You could get fired.
Wait, but like, is that a reasonable grounds to fire you? Right? Like you attempted to go speak to you.
My point. That's
see
exactly,
what I'm saying?
that's
You're
exactly my
but,
point.
like,
We're breaking it down.
Going over your manager's head, you know what I'm saying?
But are you? Because like Chris just wanted to talk. Like Chris didn't want to talk about what the manager was doing wrong. Chris didn't want to talk about like how this company sucks and how it needs to be improved. Like he just wanted to talk.
If they don't have reasonable grounds to fire you, they can still, I guess, ostracize you. You know what I'm saying?
But why are you making?
You're assuming, right?
You're assuming that.
No, this is not an assumption. They can. This is something that can happen. It's a possibility.
But why are you allowing that? Why are you
and
allowing that?
consequences before you do something?
Well, then if you have to consider the negative, why can't you consider the positive?
Oh, you absolutely can.
But that's not where.
Then you have to weigh
that's not
them.
where your initial
Then you have to
focus
weigh them.
was, right? You see how like you initially went to like, no, because they can fire you, right? And not like, well, maybe yes, because like they could give you like a double promotion,
Yeah.
like because they're so impressed from that one conversation.
Yeah,
This
but
is
again,
good.
right
This
now
is
I
good.
have nothing to say to Elon Musk. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't have any
But if
idea
you
for the company.
This is in
or
the
anything.
instant that you did have
Now,
something to say.
if I did, then I'm gonna go. You know, I'm gonna go talk to him.
Regardless of the repercussions.
Regardless,
Knowing that he could fire you.
I mean, on what grounds though? Like you said.
I mean, but you just said right that like he can.
Let's break it down. Let's
Yeah,
take it out. Let's take it out for the people.
I guess I was a little quick to the gun with the whole firing thing because, like, you're right. You do need
Yeah.
reasonable grounds, but then
Some states you do not need reasonable ground. You can fire someone
Indiana.
because you feel like
Indiana.
it. And this is true.
Wait, really?
Right, seriously.
Yeah.
It's-
oh yeah, I guess you can.
That's right.
Yeah, let's not get into politics, but speaking of, we just had a rhetoric,
We did.
science and deliberation, or what's the name of my class?
It is science and public policy.
Science and public policy. Man, there was a lot of reading.
And in rhetoric. It's in rhetoric. It's all submersed in rhetoric.
If we can put one, I'm not sure if Dr. Drury watched this, but if she does, if we can put one thing out there, what would we say for the people, for public policy making?
Check your facts. Check your facts and check the facts and check that fact.
And also, what I would say is, citizens in the public sphere of making political arguments and making political policies, I would say be sure to understand the science and also bring in your personal experiences and be willing to deliberate between the two. Do not allow one side to really take over in democracy. That's what I would say for the people. But back to our conversation.
Yes,
I think that a lot of times it really boils down to we feel like we're not worth someone else's time, therefore, or time or attention, honestly.
Yeah.
Because therefore we make assumptions on the reason why that we're not worth their time or attention. You guys see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're like assuming that they have something better to be doing with their time.
But you really don't know.
Right.
You
Like
really don't know.
conversing.
Now, if you did the research and you actually know their calendar, that's different.
Yeah.
But you really don't know. So a lot of times, even here, it's so easy to schedule a meeting with President Feller, but a lot of times students don't even talk to President Feller
Right.
because they assume that he's which he is, granted not, he's a very busy man and he does a lot of stuff here on campus, but at the same time, he has time to speak to a student. He makes time to speak to a student, but you wouldn't know that because you assume that he's so busy, he doesn't even talk to students on campus. That's your assumption. So people literally walk, you'll see somebody on TV, I might get a little off here, but a lot of times this is why people pay so much to go see someone, because they assume that it's so hard to see them, or it's so, they're so busy. All right, that's going into something else. That's
Right, I
going
was
into
about to say,
something
that's
else.
a little different.
But let's take it back here. You kind of see what I'm saying there, Z?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So, like, in a nutshell, like trying to bring it all together, like, why do we assume that, like, we aren't that like that person won't make time for us?
Yeah.
Like, why is it inherent, and why is it based on like position or like nobility in a way?
Right. Well, I mean, I guess there's lots of factors we could consider. We could think about, how are children treated by adults?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so then once you become an adult, you see someone who maybe is like, 20 years older than you, and, they're in a higher position of power than you. So then there comes like that similar dynamic. So you don't want to be treated like a child, and I guess you fear that, they might treat you like a child just because you're an intern or a low-level employee.
But I think one thing that I mentioned, and I'm not sure if this was in the podcast or in one of the videos, but it's like people treat you, people view you the way that you carry yourself.
In a way.
Do you guys believe in that?
Yeah, for sure.
I do. I know of some people firsthand who walked around in gym pants and then I walked around in a suit, and they were treated differently.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's how you carry yourself, but it's also how you look too, in a way.
That's right.
Because the first.
So you're saying if I'm out here looking like David Ruffin, I can't.
The first, I guess, judgment someone's gonna make about you is solely based on your looks. Right. You start walking up to someone, they're gonna look at you and they're gonna make a judgment, whether they mean to or not. Like they're gonna say, "Who do I think this guy is?" And what does he want?
And his what are his intentions?
And then after that, once you get to talking, then their next judgment of you comes off of like your interaction, your conversation. How do you, how do you speak? You make eye contact. Right. You speak loud. You speak quiet. How accurate are the things that you're saying?
I'll say that goes along with the confidence.
Yeah, and part of that comes from confidence, and part of it also comes from just being knowledgeable in general.
Yeah.
And so, those are the first two judgments someone's gonna make about you, and the second one is heavily relies on confidence. So you need that confidence in yourself, if you want a chance to make a good impression.
And speaking of judgments, because like the first thing I think of is, so let me ask a question actually before I go into this. And let's say like you were walking, like you were just leaving Walmart or Target, whichever you prefer. One does have slightly better carts, I will give them that, and some do have sushi on some days, I will give them that. But
I don't know where you going.
If you were it was Target. Both of those are Target. But I do love Walmart though. I am from Arkansas. But if you were walking, right, let's say like there was a old lady unbagging groceries in her car, and
like the lady from Sparks who's fixed my food this week. Z, I know exactly what you were talking about a couple weeks ago. Man, I was standing outside the door, and the woman I got up there, it was one woman. She was about 90-something years old too, and she was.
I think she was swiping cards today at lunch.
She was swiping cards. Yeah, we gonna get her name. Okay,
I know.
We gotta bring her flowers.
I don't want to name drop.
We gotta bring her flowers.
I don't want to name drop her on the podcast, but I do know her name.
Right. He's plotting to get her out of here.
No.
But like if you were in a situation that like you had to walk up on an older lady and ask her something, right? Whether it was like, oh, like you dropped your jacket, or like, oh, like you dropped this, and like here it is, like what would your thought processes be?
My thought process is, this old lady needs some help. I'm gonna be a good Samaritan, a kind person, and help this lady out because it's a minor inconvenience at best to me.
Would you have any reservations about doing so?
I don't think so. I guess maybe if she looks really mean.
Yeah.
But
right.
Or maybe if I just heard her yelling at someone.
Right, like kind of thing. Like if you had a reason to believe that like she wouldn't, right?
Right.
She wouldn't receive it well. Well, the reason that I asked is because like when you mention like judgment, like as a minority, like one of the first things I think of is like,
this is bringing me back. Okay,
yeah,
go.
like it's like, how do I present myself in a way that is so? For example, if I were in that predicament, which I have been, the first thing I thought of is how do I approach this lady in like a way that she doesn't feel like I'm trying to rob her. Right?
Yeah.
And like I've actually been in scenarios where like a lady dropped something and I was like, "Excuse me, miss," and like she like gripped her purse. Like seriously, right?
Yeah.
And now like I would say that like I'm at the point in my life where I can kind of like like use certain body movements, right? Like kind of stand back but then lean forward, right? Like when I'm talking, and like just like really really subtle
Lean
things. They kind
Lean
of
back.
that would kind of, right, like actually, right, like actually like kind of lean back, because if you get too close, like they may actually feel a little bit threatened, and that's not necessarily to call them racist, but it is necessarily to acknowledge some maybe implicit biases that they might have, right?
Yeah. So
but
you
yeah,
gotta do things like, instead of tapping her on her shoulder, you gotta
Right.
stand a couple feet back
God,
and say,
no.
"Excuse
Right.
me, miss."
Right, like actually,
you gotta smile. You gotta keep your
Right.
hands where she can see.
right, like I wouldn't walk up with like my hands behind my back, like, but like seriously, and if you want to read more of it, or if that concept interests you, it's actually called double consciousness, and it was coined by W.E.B. Du Bois.
Yeah. And I'll say, just taking it back again, because I know I want to hit on the jealous factor of this entire situation.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
So, see, I'm still...
Bring it back around.
Right?
Bring it back around.
Almost like the internship. We'll call this one an internship, because this was, So...
oh, no. The intern versus the CEO or something like that.
No, we're not. We're actually... Well,
verse probably isn't the right word, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you get the CEO and the... Oh, just say the CEO and the intern. Something like that.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
We figured it out. But, so yeah, and like I said, I gave you guys their background. They're all, they come from, pretty privileged backgrounds, from, a well background, actually. And like what you just mentioned, I'm a black man in America. I'm working in corporate. I am one of 2 black men in the entire corporation out of 60 people, and I am the only black man in the office. Only black man in the office the entire summer. And you have the nerve, we're getting to, they were jealous of the fact that I did not feel that way of the hierarchy. It's almost like you come in here thinking you run something when we've been doing this in corporate America for the last 50. This is almost this type of feeling that I had going through this. You come in here.
But who felt like that? The other interns or the employees?
Well, the other interns, and not even mentioning other employees, because I had a couple disputes there. But I don't even know. We would talk about that another time. Yeah. But just keeping it with the interns, you feel like and speaking from the perspective of the interns, my parents, my grandparents, my sister, my brother, my cousin are in corporate America. This is how it's supposed to operate. Given, I don't even know if my mom's considered to be in corporate. I know too many people. I know for a fact I don't know too many people in corporate America. Corporate. I don't know pretty much any in corporate America that's black. Yeah. So when it comes to that, I already didn't have a certain perception of how it was supposed to be. Right. So I'm thinking of it as a regular human being. You're a human, I'm a human. If I have something to say, I'll go to you. Yeah. I'll go to you to say it regardless of your title. If I feel like I want to help with the direction of this company, if I feel like I can contribute something, regardless if I'm an intern, if I'm a janitor, I'm going to walk up to the CEO and speak on that.
Right.
Regardless.
And who knows, you might get a promotion or something.
Exactly, my point. So now, you're jealous of me because I feel that way, or I think that way. You're jealous of me because I'm not afraid to go speak to the CEO, which led to that 5-6 hour conversation that they didn't have.
It might be that, but they also might be jealous that you have good ideas and they don't. Or maybe they're not confident enough to back their good ideas.
I wouldn't really necessarily, because they don't know my ideas, right? So the ideas are out of context.
Okay. But I mean, they're thinking if you go to talk to the CEO, like if you have the audacity to talk to the CEO, you must have good ideas. You know what I'm saying?
But I feel like I wouldn't have anything necessarily to say rather than they didn't have to say. It was morely of a solely of a hierarchy. I think it was more about the principle of just speaking to them, regardless if you have anything to say. At that point, it was just the principle of let's speak to someone that's in power. We're an intern. We are only here for 6 weeks. Yeah. Let's speak to them some type of shape, way, or form. That's like being here at the, and I could probably be called. I'm gonna be careful. I need an insurance bucket on this one. That's like being at the college for 4 years and not saying one word to the president of our college.
Because you feel as if, right, like he is so noble that he doesn't have time for you.
That's like being here at the college for 4 years and not speaking one word to the college because you feel.
I'm gonna, I guess, give you a little opposition here.
Please, yeah.
Because I've never spoken to President Feller, nor do I plan to anytime soon. Yeah. Because I have no reason to.
Right.
Like, I have no desire nor a reason to want to go talk to Feller right now. I have nothing that needs to be addressed, nothing important, Nor, okay, insurance bucket, nor do I really, like, have an interest in having a conversation with a man.
Actually, just don't want to. And
Just
like,
you don't really care that much about him.
I feel like that's from
But
a
not in
different
like
boat.
not in a mean or a rude way. It's just like I just don't care that much about him, you know.
right. And
Like, I hope he's well in his
Yeah.
family and he's healthy and stuff. But beyond that, it's like, you know.
Yeah.
Right, and like maybe that metaphor didn't translate all the way to that scenario of like the
Right.
President Feller. But like imagine like in a way that like it was set up to where like you did have something to talk about,
Yeah.
right? But like
But I was scared.
But like or like that, and you, like your professors and like your classmates were like, that's not your place, right?
Mm.
So you're saying like, yes, like I'm gonna go talk to President Feller about this and that, and then like your classmates were saying like, whoa, like maybe not, like I don't know about that, like President Feller, like that's the president. I mean, and excuse me for y'all have to excuse my facial expressions. I've been in very similar situations, right? Like I pledged in a fraternity, right? Like just to see what it was like. And like I get in there and there's all these like still in my head like very fake hierarchies, like they only exist because these people in this group collectively agree that they exist, and you can argue that like that's the basis for like our entire government, and we can talk about that later, but it was just expected for you to like kind of like put your head down and just like just like assimilate, right? Like just assimilate. Like don't have any different ideas. Like don't come in here trying to change nothing. Like get over there and pick up them dishes and keep going.
In that scenario, it's almost like your pledge brother.
Yeah.
And this is exactly how it is. Your
Yeah.
pledge brother gets jealous of you.
And this happened, right? They told me that they felt like I was too good to go through pledgeship. And I said, no, what I'm saying is that we're all too good to go through what they're trying to get us to do in this pledgeship. And they said, well, what if I like being treated this way? And then at that point, I said, you know what?
Pick up the trash.
I do have higher moral standards than you, and in that regard, I am better than you, so I left, right? But like people will like genuinely like try to convince you. Like I've just never been a fan of like systems that like anytime like the justification is that's just tradition or like that's just the way it is. Like even as like a little kid, I was like, what do you mean like that's just the way it is? Like we're the ones who make it the way it is. Like anything from a very small club or very small organization to like our country. Like our country does not have to be systematically like inequitable. Like it does not have to be that way. We make up this country. Like we have the power to change it. And it's like it's only when you convince yourself that you don't have the power to change it or you cannot go address the president when you have valid concerns that you actually give up that power.
Man.
But that's just how I feel about it.
I think that's direct correlation.
Oh.
And I really do. So almost going back to the example that Z brought up, and that was a really good one with the pledgeship, but the example that Z brought up of, you know, being in your student, you don't have anything desirable to say, right?
Right.
That's almost like you, like, that would be like you being jealous of someone else who's speaking to President Feller.
Right, so I see Malik talking to President Feller. I'm like, who does this guy think he is?
Right,
exactly.
Right.
But you're not jealous, so then you can't really put yourself in that boat. But if you got jealous of somebody, then it's almost like you perceive yourself as you can't. Like, why are you jealous of them when you can do the same thing?
You can do the same thing.
So
right.
that's almost the correlation there. It's like being here at Wabash for 4 years and not speaking to President Feller because you think you can't speak to President Feller, right? And you get jealous of other people who do because they think that they're better than you.
Yeah.
But in actuality, say it again for the people.
In actuality, like, we're addressing things that, like, you should also be addressing, right? Like, it's not that I think that I'm better than you. It's like, you should probably come with me and, like, we should go talk about these things, like, with the president collectively and, like, together, right? Rather than, like, you just saying, like, that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is.
I wonder at bigger schools, and we'll leave it from schools aspect after this, but like imagine like even my interns, they all go to bigger schools, but or most of them, but like a Purdue, how many students actually take up on the role to go speak to the president of even their department, or
right? And then again, it's like with a school so large, I mean, I can only imagine that the students may feel. I mean, at Wabash we only have about 900 students, right?
Yeah.
A little less, but so there's a kind of a greater sense of connectedness than maybe a school with 40,000 students. So I often wonder, or could only try to imagine, like if they really felt like they would actually care. Right, you're a school with 40,000 students. Like you literally have problems that are regarding 6 and 7,000 students, right? Versus your one problem that's unique to you, right? So like then it's like, well, I'm not gonna go because like my problem will be so minute in their eyes, and maybe this even like speaks to like some of the thinking behind why somebody would feel like they can't go talk to President Feller even at our less than 1,000 students campus. It's like. My issue or my reasoning for speaking with them is so minute compared to what I think that they already have to do, right? It would just be a waste of time.
Hey, we could really scale it up. We could talk about what about the President of the United States.
Right.
Oof.
Right. Why don't people mail him letters?
Well, they do, but he doesn't read them.
Right.
He has someone who does, actually, I don't even know if they read them all, but... I was watching this TV show. I don't know how true this is, but there's like a letter day at the White House where they'll like pick a random letter that someone like sent the president, and then they'll read it and try and help that person. Which I don't know how.
I would argue that someone reads every last one of them.
Probably interns.
Right.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think the interns. It'd definitely be definitely a position, definitely a role.
Yeah,
I think it's.
We hope so.
Letter reader.
We hope
letter
so,
reader
right?
for the president.
And then he like compiles the information. Like this many people wrote in about what you should do about this climate issue. This many people wrote in about the France submarine and the Australians.
I mean, but and I just want to get back to the piece. I think we're really gonna help someone out there. So let's tailor it towards everyday situation. So if I'm that person, if I'm that intern, if I'm in that shoe of even if I'm in my workplace, if I'm in my home even, and just really being that person, like how do we, adjust our way of thinking to understand that if you have something to say, don't feel belittled, and don't feel a lack of confidence just because of your position given to with someone else, right? So how do we get out of that? Because I think that's something that we should.
Well, I think confidence is huge. We've already talked about it and touched on it. And it's just like you gotta have the confidence to go walk up to them, walk into their office, and say your piece.
I think it's like for me, like the focus, like where my head keeps going back is to the confidence to be different. I was never the kid to fully fit in. I would have my groups that I could connect with, but I never really fit in anywhere, and I always felt it. And so I guess maybe through my story I kind of accumulated some confidence, knowing that, and kind of really accepting that I'm different and I probably won't ever fully fit in anywhere. Partially because I'm not afraid to speak my mind. If I don't like something, I'm going to tell you that I don't like it. Right? If I don't agree with something, I'm going to tell you that I don't agree with it. And if your reason is that's just the way it is, now we really bumping heads. But I mean, don't be afraid to be different. Don't be afraid to genuinely be yourself. If you feel like you have to assimilate, or you feel like you have to do something in order to kind of fit in and be accepted, there is a balance.
Yeah.
If you feel like speaking up will cause you to be ostracized, and that's not something that you're willing to do, that's a very fair and personal decision. But I mean, my thing is, and maybe this has been due to I lost a classmate this summer, and that kind of opened my eyes. And this guy was literally just walking down the street. You never know when your last day is. If I died tomorrow, and I had a second to relive my life, to actually see my life flash before my eyes, what would I have said I should have, could have, and would have done, right? Versus what I actually did. Right. So for me, that's what kind of guides me is after having this realization of life is very fragile, and you are not promised tomorrow or even the next hour. So to walk through life saying, I'm eventually going to get to that place where I speak up, or I'm eventually going to do this, or I'm eventually going to do that, I would challenge you to truly think again.
it's going off of that. I want to speak on the aspect of assumptions. For those of you out there that, and I think this is huge, and we'll talk about I promise we're gonna talk about relationships because we have not talked about it yet, but I promise we will.
Oh, we gonna get there.
I promise we will.
Yeah.
But when it comes,
we gotta get back to education too.
We gotta get back to education too. But I promise
there's a lot more episodes to come.
A lot more. But when it comes to making assumptions, we do this a lot in relationships. We assume not only against down the sidewalk, right? We assume that they don't have time for us. Or that the girl is too pretty, but we assume for that girl, that guy is too pretty for us, or too good for us, so therefore we don't even address them. Right. And also in our relationship, we assume that someone's doing something without even asking, not getting the actual answer, right? So I think a lot of times we just take that assumption and run with it, because that's how we perceive the way that they mind us, you know, and I firmly believe in why not just ask, or why not just do it and then react instead of assume, right?
Assuming.
Stop assuming.
Start
reacting.
Granny or grandma, for people from the South, always said, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me.
Yeah, I definitely heard that before, and I think that's a good spot to end it for today.
All right.
Unless you have anything else to say?
No, that's about it. So, what's coming up here next? Z, you dropping your album coming out soon? Man, it been a minute since since the single dropped. It's been what, about a month? Because that was like our first time doing a podcast.
Let's see, it might have been a month.
Yeah, because that was our first time doing a podcast, and you dropped a single. So, album coming out. Keep pushing that date. What date is the album coming out, Z?
It's coming out in 2030. No, I'm kidding. No, it's close. It's close.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm working on it. You know, it's tough because I'm doing it all myself. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it's not as fast of a process.
Mix, master, record, everything yourself. Right.
It's a one-man show. So, you know, and I'm a busy guy with all my other responsibilities. So, you know, it's coming along as fast as it can. So.
All right.
Well, I'm gonna stop shouting it out at the end of the podcast though until it's actually, you know, ready. So.
Well, no, you gotta keep pushing it. Let them know the dates, every single one. Every single one.
All right. Be bold. Be great.
Be bold. Be great. And